Welcome to A Work in Progress.
We are Mark and Pete. We are Mark and Pete. Woo!
Welcome to A Work in Progress with Mark.
And Pete.
Hey.
And Noah.
And Noah.
We have a guest.
Handsome man. We'll get to him. How have you been, Pete?
How have I been?
Yeah.
I've been doing pretty well.
Yeah?
We're doing this challenge thing at the gym for, cutting out all the junk food and exercising a lot. And I went full force into it. So I basically had a week.
As you usually do.
I don't know. I don't do moderation very well.
No.
But I did go all in. And so I've had a week's worth of withdrawals, which was really rough. Fatigue and just dragging along and headaches and irritability. Like there was a point where I had left my garage open and I had some stuff outside, like from my garage, and I was about to go put it away for the evening, but I was like, you know what? I kind of hope somebody just comes and tries to steal it because I need to fight somebody right now. It's like I was just like, that's how irritable I was, and I could kind of
Want a reason to beat someone up.
I really was just ready to get after it because that's just part of it's withdrawal symptoms. I was super irritable. But thankfully, I did not get into a fight with anybody. And I'm a weekend now, and I feel much better. So
That's good.
Happy
You
about
punch
that.
Henry or anything?
Never. No. It's all good.
I think since the last time we talked, you have an addition in your family, too.
Oh, yeah. I have another baby. Has it been that long?
I don't know if it's been that long or not, but...
Yeah. Well, she was probably pregnant last time, but it's probably been 10 months since we've done...
Probably.
Yeah. Well, I think we did a New Year's episode.
We did a New Year's episode.
So what is it, September? 9 months?
A long time.
Yeah. So I have an 8-month-old baby.
He's practically in college now.
Yeah. Welcome back to the show. It's been a while. So he's awesome. His name is Vin, and he's doing great. He's a wonderful little baby.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome. My wife is pregnant. We're going to get a new baby in November. So super excited about that.
Push the applause button on the thing. Did you push the right one?
I don't know. We'll find out Jonas will have to let us know.
We'll find out in post. For those of you who don't know what just happened, we got a cool new, what's that thing called?
I don't know, but it makes noises.
The thing that the things plug into?
Yeah, the thing that's it.
Yeah, the thing that the things...
An audio
the mics-
interface, I think.
Audio interface.
And it does things like this.
That's so cool. All right.
That's fun.
So just a real quick thing. In addition to a fun new audio interface thing, we're going to plan to just have guests on now as much as we can because I feel like we've kind of tapped out our discussions between you and me.
We've talked about ourselves a lot.
A lot. And I don't know that there's anything else we could unveil about ourselves.
Boring.
Yeah. Besides just talking about what we did that day.
Yeah.
Which might be fun, but we'd like to branch out for ourselves and for people who actually want to listen and watch the show. So
yeah, and there's people that are interesting other than just us.
Yes, maybe to a different degree.
Yeah.
But still very interesting. Speaking of, would you like to introduce our guest for today?
Our guest, I know him well. Peter knows him better. Is Mr. Noah Steinbrenner. Noah is Peter's younger brother. He's actually been on the show before.
Yeah, a return guest.
He's a returning guest.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, what an honor to be back.
Last time he was here, you guys talked about dinosaurs being fake.
Yeah,
and
the moon.
And the moon.
Yeah.
And you guys, so it's going to be a fun episode. So hold on for the fun that is about to ensue. How you doing today, Noah?
Great, beautiful day. What did I do today? Not much.
Work. Oh, did you had off? You had off today.
I had
right?
off today.
You
I
was off
just
on
came
Mondays.
in. Yeah, really haven't done much today.
How are you liking? Because you've been in that schedule for a while, having working Saturdays and off Sunday and Monday. Have you found that you like it or dislike it, or just?
It is really, really nice.
It is
I like
nice?
it a lot.
Yeah.
Having Mondays off of work, and you have the whole day to go places that are open because it's Monday.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to get things done. So, if you need to go to the DMV or
Right.
super exciting things like that. Yeah,
That makes sense.
Super exciting things like that. I've never, I don't know what it's like to have Sundays off because I'm working Sundays and then following up with people into the evening and everything like that. So my day off has always been midweek. So I feel sorry for other people who have to have a day off with everybody else.
You know what I thought about
Everything's
is
so busy.
like dentist appointments and eye appointments and stuff. Some places are open on Saturday, But a lot of people work like 8 to 5 Monday through Friday,
Yeah.
and they have to like take off of work
Totally.
to get a doctor's appointment.
Oh, yeah.
And like it's kind of wild.
It's
to
the
me.
same thing with the bank.
like you have to
the
ask
bank
your
is
boss-
only open when you're not available.
It's like, hey, boss, can I have an hour and a half off of work so I can go check my bank account?
Yeah.
I have to talk to my Chase person.
Check my
I'm
bank
really
account.
sorry.
I live in the 1940s.
I don't know. Whatever people do, whatever adults do, I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, it's wild. So the schedule's working out for you, though.
Yeah, it's been great. Yeah, your schedule must be really weird having to work Sundays.
Yeah, it's just different. You get
I
used,
just get
get
used
used
to
to
it.
it.
So do you give yourself like your own 2-day weekend, or do you just work every day?
No, so I try to take Saturdays off, even though Saturdays are like the main day we do events and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't pressure myself to do a lot of work, and then I take a day off during the week. That's generally
Okay.
my Sabbath.
Nice.
Is
Is it a specific day or does it change every week for you?
No, it doesn't change every week. It's consistent for a while. Right now, it's Tuesdays.
I feel like that's a good day to take.
It's a great. It's been my favorite.
If
so
I
far.
was a pastor, I'd pick Tuesday.
Why
I
would
feel
you
like-
pick Tuesday?
Because there's like a hangover is the wrong word, but after Sunday's just your busiest day because you actually have service and all
Yeah.
that stuff. And then I feel like Monday has that carryover of you just had your busiest day, so you kind of want to like carry over and get some stuff done that
Exactly.
you couldn't really catch up on Sunday on,
Yeah.
but is still like pertinent or like what's like you got to see to it right away kind of stuff. And then you can like
and then you can take a breath.
kind of take that adrenaline dump of like
Yeah.
exhaustion and rest
Totally.
on a Tuesday.
Yeah, that's how it was for me because I had all of this Sunday. You have all this stuff of, oh man, I got to do this, I got to do this, I
Yeah.
got to do this. So Monday's my opportunity to do all those things,
Right.
and then I can take a breath
Yeah,
before I jump.
I like
in.
it. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So Noah, tell us about yourself.
Okay, I don't know. What are some fun questions to answer? Maybe like live in Wisconsin. What do you want? What should I talk about?
What do you do for fun? What are your hobbies?
And what do you do for work and stuff like that?
Okay.
Do you live with anybody?
Yeah. Is there any
Okay, I
love
am-
interest in your life?
Yeah. Okay.
Love interest?
Yeah. I am married.
Whoa!
Yeah.
All right. Sweet.
That's been a success. Yeah.
oh, nice. That's
Yeah,
good.
that's great. Yeah, that's been a great decision for me. And
That's good.
happy with that.
I officiated the wedding.
How'd it go?
How did it go?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Everybody loved it.
It was pretty cool.
You sure you're
Was
married?
there- Yeah, I don't know if you sent in the paperwork.
Did you send in the paperwork? Was that supposed to be
I was
me?
supposed to. You were,
Awkward.
We're not sure.
yeah, but that's been great. And then buying a house, like a lot of big steps in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But been really exciting. And yeah, for work, I work on installing gas services to houses, like natural gas services.
Pretty sweet.
Not super exciting, but
Yeah.
gets the job done. I like it.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be exciting for anybody that knows nothing about that, like myself. Like if you explained an ordinary day in your life, I think my mind would be blown.
Wow.
I always find it interesting just other people's skill sets. And I've always struggled with envy of people's like knowledge about things. Like I envy your theological knowledge. Like I don't want to put the work in. I just want to have it.
Yeah.
And the other day we were at my parents' house and Noah went to go look at the gas meter outside.
Yeah.
And his wife, Gwen, was like, he always checks the meters. And I'm just like, I wouldn't know.
What are you looking at?
It's like he has this like curiosity of, oh, what's the meter says? What's the meter say? And he knows what it means when he reads it.
Yeah.
And I immediately felt this envy of like, oh man, that's kind of cool. Like, like he's got this skill that I have no idea
no
what any
idea.
of it means, you know? So
So is there gas that comes into like this building?
Yeah. Well,
Really?
probably for your water heater and your furnace.
We
Or
do
probably
have those.
Our natural gas. Yeah. So a lot of the calls we get daily are people are smelling natural gas
That would be scary.
in their building, so they don't want it to blow up. So then they call the emergency hotline. So then I'll show up and be like, hey.
Hey.
I'm the hotline
Yeah.
guy.
Ooh, that was good.
Was that a hotline?
That's a
All right,
hot
Wow.
Too much. I'm sorry.
Yikes.
So they'll like call like an emergency number, like my house is about to blow up, and you'll show up.
And
You're like,
most of the time,
it's all right.
probably half the time it's not, and they were smelling their old fish in the garbage. Or,
Do you get a lot of issues with like gas stoves?
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say most of the calls that are legit, it's either behind the gas stove or it is the gas stove.
I have a
Silly
gas stove at
stoves.
my house right now.
Yeah.
And Noah helped me when we remodeled the kitchen, kind of like figure out like how to detach it and retach it. And I think there was like even maybe a little bit of a leak that you helped me fix.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because he had the meter or whatever thing, and he was like, "Yeah, this is not good."
Oh,
And I was like, "Okay, thanks." So
you just
he
saved his
might
life.
have saved my house
He's a
from
superhero.
pretty much the humblest superhero
Humblest
ever.
superhero. Nah.
Yeah.
I started a fire the other day on accident in my home. I don't have gas. I'm just dumb.
Pastor Mark started the fire.
Yeah. There was a candle there, and I thought it'd be a good idea to put a piece of paper on it, and it lit on fire.
Oh,
Everybody's okay, except for the piece of paper.
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So in my upbringing, it was always pastor last name. Did you ever consider, or were you ever Pastor Burkholder, or this is completely side tangent, but I just popped in my head.
No, so my dad's Pastor Burkholder. So,
Mr. Turtle is my father. The name's Crush. Is that what he says?
it's something like that. That was a good call. No, it's a lot of a generational thing now. I feel like our generation doesn't necessarily call pastors by pastor last name. Maybe they do. A lot of people call me Pastor Mark. A lot of people call me Mark.
Do you feel any offense to that?
No, I was just talking about with someone on Sunday because I met someone new, and I was like, "Hey, you can call me Mark," and someone chimed in and said, "No, it's Pastor Mark. You need to call him Pastor Mark." I'm like, "Okay. Well, thank you. I worked hard for that."
Yeah. It's like when there's a dentist and you have to call him doctor.
Now.
It's like, well, come on.
Really?
Yeah. I know you have a PhD, but there needs to be a line. I'm sorry to any dentists out there. I'm sure you work really hard. And
I feel like there's got to be a skit about that. But I always thought that would be a good skit. Like if you're in an emergency, when someone says, "Is there a doctor?" in the house?"
I'm sure it exists.
And like someone just has like a PhD in like
yeah.
literature.
Yeah, they're like a psychiatrist or something. Like,
How-
I'll give him mouth to mouth. No, you've never done that before, honey.
How often do you think you should go to the dentist?
At least once a year.
We know from the show that my oral care is terrible.
Did you hear about
so-
that?
No.
I didn't know you're supposed to switch out your toothbrush.
I
at some
asked him
point.
how often
Oh.
he switches his toothbrush.
What, so it's been years?
He said he
Yeah.
didn't know he was supposed
I
to
didn't
switch it up.
know.
To be fair, I'm sure it was still functional.
Yeah.
It still had
Yeah.
bristles.
If it
on
works, if it
Still
fits,
has
it
bristle. I
ships.
since realized that there's a color meter on it. That like once the
No
blue
way.
goes away, you're supposed to change it.
Oh, see, I didn't know. I was unaware. I often would switch it like every 3-ish months, 2 to 3 months, or if I got sick, because I heard you recontaminate your mouth with your germs if you're sick. So I would
Yeah,
do
that
that.
makes sense.
I just look at the bristles, and if they start to look a little funky,
Yeah. Not only are they bending out, they're actually curled all the way around, pointing down the other direction. I think it might be time.
there's no bristles left. It's just plastic.
It's 79 cents for a brush. I'll buy you one.
No, too much. Too much.
Anyways.
So how long you been married now?
A year and a half ish. Yeah, about a year and a half.
Year and a half. That's
Yeah.
fun. What have you learned?
I think I've learned that it can be a joy to care for someone else, and it's not always about like what you get out of something. It's about what you can give to the other person, and then seeing like how that improves their day, or just that there's so much joy in things that aren't just about you or for you. You know, like it's feel like it's the same thing as like getting or giving gifts on Christmas. It's like as a child, you're really excited to get the gifts.
Yeah.
And as you get older, you're more excited to give them. You know.
Yeah.
I think that's a main thing that's kind of hit me. And then also just the different trials and tribulations that happen through marriage. Like, it's obviously different things come up, you know. And once you get through a couple of them, it's just exciting because you're like, wow, we can get through anything, you know. Whether that's like losing a family member or just times being tough. And once you get past it, it's like, wow,
Yeah.
whatever the next thing is, we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of a cool realization, and realizing just the role too that God plays in that, and knowing that if he's your rock, everything is fine. Because you see other people's relationships and marriages that aren't kind of rooted in God.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, they're not great.
Right.
So, yeah, I think those are some of the main things I've learned so far.
That's outstanding.
How long you been married?
2020, August. What is it? September. We just had our 4th anniversary.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a little over 4 years.
Yep.
Yeah. What are some challenges that you guys have faced in that time being married?
Go on. You go ahead.
I don't want to get myself in trouble here.
No, I'll just say ditto.
What are some challenges?
I would say figuring out communication being a huge thing, with like ego and frustration on my own end of, but I think I've done a pretty good job and I've gotten better at when I don't want to address something that's like difficult to talk about. But then I'm like, okay, well, let's not go to bed angry kind of thing. And then we talk about it. And it's almost always just a misunderstanding if there's an issue. Almost always. Like Noah said, like when you have God as the center of your marriage, and it just makes everything easier. And I feel like we get along so well and we have this great friendship. So when things go wrong, it's almost always she misunderstood or I misunderstood or we both misunderstood.
Yeah.
So I think I know people talk about communication a lot, and it's almost like a cliche at this point, but it is a cliche for a reason because it's super accurate that like if there's an issue, especially if you don't want to talk about it or address it and talk about it. And it's probably a lot less of a big deal than you thought it was.
Yeah. Yeah, without a doubt. You got anything now?
I think on that same note, not stressing the little things is really important. Like if you get home late and the dishes aren't done, just being like, you know what, we'll be fine if we do them tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's even more so like you guys have kids, but where you just can't be worried about like things being messy or dirty and things like that. And you probably changes you psychologically, obviously after you have kids, and you can't be like, wow, well, there's crud on the floor and the kitchen's a mess. But
Yeah.
like if you have people over and they know you have kids, like whatever, like if you had to make the house perfect every time, your life would be awful. So I think that's a big thing is like Gwen and I are really good at just being like, you know what, we'll figure this out tomorrow, and we know that we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it's been like years and your house is just disgusting and you're
Yeah,
bored of
right.
it,
That's a different level.
Probably a line.
yeah, yeah. There's probably a line not to cross, but I think like being too OCD can be a problem and a stress on marriage if people are like have expectations of what they want something to be.
I think that's incredible and serendipitous that you say that, because Shereen and I genuinely, because we've been going for walks recently at night, which is amazing. And we just had that conversation like maybe yesterday about how we're just coming to terms with it's not going to be perfect. And because we both have a little bit of like, we want the house to be nice, obviously, but we're just like, sometimes the dishes aren't going to be done and we'll get them tomorrow. Sometimes the living room is going to be a mess. And it's just like almost the freedom of letting go of like the perfection mindset and then us both agreeing with it. Because there's also pressure from your spouse of like, what do they think and what do they want? Because I want them to be happy. I don't want them to be miserable all the time. So to both kind of come to terms with that, it's just going to be like that sometimes. And that when we're 50 and the kids are grown or maybe out of the house, like our house can be perfect and pristine all the time if we want. So, you know, just take each step of life as it comes, I guess.
Yeah. I struggle with the less like the pressures of my spouse and just like pressure from within of like what I expect of me and kind of what I feel like the world expects of me.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of that has to like goes back to either like mental or physical health, that like I have these expectations of providing for my wife and children. And so that's what I devote everything to at the expense of other good things.
Yeah.
And so the challenge that I find myself in is that my natural inclination is to devote my time and attention to my wife and my kids which sounds like a great thing, but I do it so often at the expense of myself. And for years I did that, and what happened was my mental health depleted, my physical health depleted, all of these things depleted, causing me not to be able to care for my wife and kids because of those things.
Which was the goal all along,
exactly.
right?
So how do you guys navigate kind of those pressures of what it means to be a husband, what it means to be a father, while also giving value to your own personal health?
Well, I had hit rock bottom personally. Because I came into my marriage and kind of having that traditional stance of like, I want to be able to provide and I want to take care of the family and all of that. And one of the reasons I ended up selling the gym was it was successful, but not financially to the point of where I could actually like have consistent income.
Yeah.
And that started wearing at me over time. And then slowly things started to slip and slip and slip. And I kind of talked about this at my talk I did at the gym a while ago. But I had like all these different addictions going on and was not taking care of myself, and like depression and all sorts of stuff. And I basically was not taking care of my family because I felt like I couldn't take care of my family. And it was this really, really difficult spot. And I just picked, at that point, I was like, okay, I'm not being a good husband or a good father. And I picked like one thing at a time to address and like kind of fixed it. And I went through withdrawals on like 4 different things that I had. And now I'm feeling like the best I have in a long time. I think just the weight of the gym being gone relieved a lot of that stress so that I could focus more on my family and not, because when you're a small business owner, like that is almost like a child, like that you have to attend to all the time. So not having that and being able to just kind of work a normal person job and then Shireen work it too. And then also compromise where understanding that Shireen is okay, that she helps. Like she helps financially. She's a nurse. Like nurses make pretty good money. And she wants to do that. So for me to kind of, again, put my ego aside and be like, okay, it's good that she can work and help financially and that I can work and help financially. And we're a team in that way. That was like kind of a mental hurdle I had to overcome. But now going through all of that and all of that learning, kind of going back to something I talked to you, I think I told you last time, is like, be careful what you pray for. You know, because I often pray for like wisdom, and partly because of Solomon in the Bible, and I was like, oh, he prayed for it and he got all the wisdom in the world. I want to be like that, right? But they didn't tell you all the struggles that Solomon might have gone through to get so wise. And so I went through some serious struggles, but learned a lot along the way. And now, having overcome a lot of that stuff, like I do feel mentally that I'm in a much, much better place to be a better husband and a better father because of it. So,
yeah, and like you said, I mean, so many of those pressures aren't necessarily coming from your spouse.
Oh yeah, a ton of it's self-imposed, right?
So they're like these ideas that we conjure up in our mind from past experiences or for things we've seen that we're having to sacrifice.
Right.
And so there is this grieving process that we have to go through. And
that's exactly what it is. It's a grieving process.
Of saying, of putting to death these ideas that we had in order for these true realities to live on.
It's incredible how the analogy of Jesus dying and that like ultimate sacrifice plays a role in so many things in life. Like if you have an addiction, like you have to die to that to resurrect and like come through on the other side, which is kind of wild, and to your own ego, like or old belief patterns that you had, like that has to die so that life can flourish on the other side.
Yeah. I mean, that is the scriptural theme of resurrection is everywhere in our world. Like it is, we're preaching through Ecclesiastes right now in church, and Ecclesiastes is a bomb Old Testament sermon. So if you've never read through Ecclesiastes, go do it. It'll change your life. But that's what it talks about so much, is just these cycles of life, of death and resurrection, that old things go away, new things come, and that it's cyclical. That's what happens. And
I mean,
we
nature,
participate
the
in cycles.
seasons.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So now, Noah, how do you deal with kind of those pressures that are either imposed upon you or that you impose on yourself?
I think that when you get depressed or you're feeling down, especially for a long period of time, that depression is your body telling you something has to change. And the reason it's even more stressful and more depressing is because you're scared of making that change. And in reality, it's like you not making that change is making everything even worse.
Yeah.
Like you with the gym, when you're like, something has to go. I'm spread too thin, all these different things. Or a lot of times it's a job. Like currently, my job is great.
Yeah.
Before, when it wasn't, each day was harder because something had to change. And it's difficult when you're in a position where you're like, this thing can't change right now because for whatever reason, this, that, or the other, my family needs this income, or my kid's really stressing me out today, but your kid's going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah. You can't get rid of them.
So you better figure it out.
Yeah, right.
But especially like if it's a job or if it's maybe part of your lifestyle that you know isn't right at that moment, you know something has to change. You don't want to do it. A lot of times that's what the depression is. And at least then, once you figure that out, you know, hey, I can fix this. And it's just over time, like different challenges are more difficult to fix. Like in the future, like let's say you get a new job that takes you somewhere else, a different location, a different state. You have to stress over where are we going to live?
Yeah.
What are we going to do? But because you've gotten through those old challenges when you were depressed and figured it out, it gives you that courage going forward that I've gotten through this before. And the biggest scary part of it was before I acted, was the inaction.
Yeah.
When you were like, this is a daunting thing that's happening. And once you sold the gym, once you started working out again, you were like, wow, it's actually not so bad. Like I see the light.
It's incredible. You're right. Like so much of stress, anxiety, depression comes from inaction. And it's like a self-perpetuating cycle thing, because when you're in that state of depression, anxiety, and stress, you don't feel like you have what it takes to make the first step to change something. But that's what it takes to get out of that state. I heard from someone talking about alcohol, like alcohol addiction, and they used an analogy I really liked was you can't see the label while you're inside the bottle. You can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. And a lot of times that's kind of how addiction is you can't see the issue that you have while you're in it. But after you've broken free from it and you look at it, you're like, oh man, I was in a place. And it's kind of the same thing with mental states, is you can't necessarily see the way out or how bad it is for you while you're in it.
Yeah.
But if you get out of it, you start making some steps, you start making some strides, you overcome some things, and you look back at that time in your life and you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize what I was going through at that moment.
And I think that's an essential step, is looking back and acknowledging. Because so often we get through these difficult times and then we just keep going, and then
You're right.
difficult time comes up.
Right.
And we're just thrown back into that situation.
And we forget how strong we are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then it just compounds, and that's what trauma is. Like it's just this compounding negative experience rather than dealing and processing what just happened.
Yeah.
I mean, like you guys have been through really difficult things, loss of family members and things like that. Like if you just go through that and don't give yourself time to grieve and you go on and then you lose somebody, like there's going to be a breaking point. But no matter what it is, if we experience those times of discouragement, anxiety, depression, like we have to give ourself a space to process that it happened and to acknowledge that we got through it and how we got through it in order to better handle the next situation, exactly like you guys are talking about. Because if we don't, then it's just compounding the damage that is going to happen next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also feel like over-analyzing and over-planning could be the death of you. Like, I'm pretty content and happy with where I'm at now, but in those low points when you're like analyzing and watching YouTube videos on like, how do I meet my goals and what should I do
same
next?
Video like 8 times at that point.
Yeah, and you're like, maybe I should just do something, or like thinking that you have a problem. Like I think therapy is great for some people, but like for me, it wasn't. Like going and then being like, man, maybe you have this issue and this issue and this issue. When really I just needed to start acting and getting my life together. It's not because, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, if maybe you're depressed because you got to fix some things and you just aren't fixing them. Or,
So therapy for you was your catapult to be like, I just got to do something.
Therapy
so it worked in that way.
aspect.
So
I guess so.
It was a pro.
That is so funny.
Throw it in the win column.
Therapy helped me. The whole time I was like, man, this is not helping. But it did.
It did. It got you moving. It made you do something.
So I was like, wow, this is stupid. Let's see how deeply rooted this issue is. I'm like, it's not deeply rooted. I just don't want to make my bed. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just being late. Like, just, man. Yeah.
Call a spade a spade. I'm lazy.
Lazy. I just did your job.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Man. So then how do we balance that as men? Because we obviously have this societal pressure to be the strong, like you said, the provider. Like we have these kind of standards of what manliness, and I think even biblical standards of what manliness is, while also giving us space to process and to be vulnerable and to emote. And so often in history, I mean, it's been this pendulum. And for decades, it was this pendulum of you don't have emotions. You just buckle down and you do. And now the pendulum is starting to swing back the other way. It's where like you don't do, you just have emotions. Yeah. Where's the balance between those two?
That's a really good point because I look at like the Stoic mindset, which is, I actually really like a lot of it, which is essentially don't let whatever happens around you change your how like your emotions or how you react. So if it's a bad day, you keep going. If it's a good day, you keep going. It's kind of like that maybe story with the farmer. It could be good. It could be bad. I'm not going to put too much merit into it or too much thought into it because I got to keep doing this thing. And I think for like the 1950s father who was the sole provider and kind of bore the weight of most of the family dynamic, that makes a ton of sense. And because you got to just keep going and keep chugging. But I do think that being able to talk to people, especially people that you like family and friends that love you and actually care about you, to kind of unload certain things, I think that's astronomical and huge for being able to stay productive in your life and just to be a healthy and happy human being. But there has to be, I think it all comes down to there is truth and there is fact. There has to be truth and there has to be fact in the world. And if you are not making your bed, right? Noah could come to me and I could be the therapist mindset and say, okay, well, let's talk about how you've been feeling lately. And let's really dig into this. Or I could say, dude, make your bed. You're being lazy.
Yeah.
Right? So that's there's truth and there's fact. He can just make his bed. And I think that men and women, the problem is our culture is starting to meld the two. And a lot of times emotion works for women better than it does with men. And if you push emotion and feeling on a guy to try and fix his problems too much, it might not work because that's not how all guys are different. So I'm not saying that, but for a lot of guys, it might not even work. But if you're like, hey dude, like you've really been slacking and you have responsibilities and for your friend group and your family and for me, your buddy, like I need you to step it up. And then a lot of times that wakes up the fire in a guy and be like, you know what, you're right. I have been slacking. Let's go. Yeah. So, because again, that's the truth. Yeah. So to dance around it and tiptoe a lot of times doesn't help. Yeah. All that to wrap around one more time and say, I do think a lot of times you have to splash in times when you can have a face-to-face, one-on-one, in-depth conversation with a guy that like a buddy or a brother that like you love and can confide in. To get things off your chest, to bounce ideas off of, to get encouragement, because a lot of times that is lacking even in the modern world.
Yeah, and I think it's not an either or. I
Right.
think it is a both and.
Right.
I mean, we take that example of making your bed and we make it into a bigger example.
Sure.
If there's a guy who has a strong porn addiction,
Yeah.
like you can just tell him, hey, stop looking at porn over and over and over
That's
again. And
true.
for someone, that might be like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And I need to do that. And I can't do this, but you stop things cold turkey all the time. I don't know how you do it. But that might be what that person needs. Or it could be let's process our understanding of sex.
Yeah.
And let's think biblically about our understanding of sex. Let's talk through understanding what happened in our past that kind of gave us this addiction and molded this addiction. And so for some people, you got to do that. It's not I can just stop. And
Sure.
I think it's a both and, that you have that conversation. And then once you have that conversation, you have people around you that are like, all right, we understand why you're doing this. Now stop looking at porn.
Yeah.
I think it also has contextual situations or whatever, because if you know someone is actually like depressed and they're not making their bed, that person, I'm not going to say suck it up and make your bed. I wouldn't, because
It wouldn't help. Yeah.
It wouldn't help. I've been through depression before,
Yeah.
and I know that it's a deeper rooted thing than just not being lazy.
Yeah.
That's like a serious situation where like they have other things going on that need to be talked about.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes into like knowing the person and knowing what they need in that moment.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Totally.
So I guess I don't want someone to take what I said and just be like, oh, he said like just don't be lazy no matter what. That's not.
Sometimes.
Sometimes that's
But other
needed
times,
though. But
yeah.
it's contextual,
Yeah.
and it depends on the person and a lot of different things.
So how much work do you guys put into making your bed every morning? Because like you're gonna lay in
think
it. And
I actually get out of it every day because I leave first.
Yeah.
And people are, and my wife and still sleeping, so I don't have to. If I make it, it's later in the day.
I think it's more so like small imagery of the rest of your day and the rest of your life. Like, I think when I said like not making my bed, I meant like laying in the bed for 10 hours and you're just like, I can't do anything, which is a deeper sign that if you're like depressed and you're just covered in ice cream and Cheeto fingers, you're just laying there. That was me.
Sounds like a Tuesday.
Yeah. Sounds like my day off every day.
I don't see anything wrong with that picture.
You might bump that up to Monday.
Cheeto night.
4-day
Cheeto
weekend
day.
coming up.
Flaming Hots, baby.
Oh man.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So you put gas into people's houses. That's cool.
Oh,
That's cool.
Yeah, and from his, never mind.
yeah. Oh man.
Just kidding, jokes.
All
I
right,
didn't even finish it.
Something that I absolutely love about Noah is his inquisitive mind, and that your mind is just always working and processing things. And do you like enjoy just like regular puzzles, or just the complex puzzles of life?
No, I don't really do puzzles. I'm terrible at chess. I've tried to play Peter.
Like,
Can't beat him.
do a crossword? No, I don't want to do a crossword. I just
Yeah.
want to discover the purpose of life.
It feels more valuable. I don't like puzzles really.
That's fair. Do you still do Wordles?
I've been slacking a lot. My family has a Wordle chain text group.
Still?
Group chat. Yeah, it's still going.
Wow.
But there's like 12 people in the chat, and I think 4 people play it every day, and everyone else just is still in the chat. And I think it's been like 2 weeks since I've played, but I really like puzzles, and I like word puzzles the most. I like the Sudokus and whatever puzzles, but is that how you say it?
Sudoku, I think.
Sudoku. Thank you. It's been a minute.
That's all right.
Yeah.
There's
Anyways.
the New York Times. What are you saying?
Sudoku is my favorite game. I play it all the time.
I play it all the time.
I just don't know how to pronounce it.
It's my number one game. I just don't know what it is.
Wordle was like one of the first things that we talked about as people. Like when we were
Was
just
it?
becoming friends, we were just like, whoa, you Wordle?
I Wordle too. Let's be buddies. Yeah.
But New York Times has like all their puzzles. So when I'm putting the kids to bed, that's when I go through and do all the puzzles. So I do the Wordle, I
No
do the
way.
connections, I do the crossword puzzle, and then there's another one called Streaks or something. There's a new one, but that's when I do the puzzles.
Nice.
Then when I'm done with that, if the kids aren't asleep yet, oh well, I'm leaving. I did my puzzles. I sound like a grandma. I did my puzzles for the day.
You know, they never let me in the family Wordle chat. I think it's because my first word was frogs every time, and I guess frogs isn't a good word.
I think frogs is actually solid.
Yeah, that's a good word. There's only one vowel. You could have.
Yeah, but R and S are pretty good.
Yeah.
And if you do get a F or a G that's in the word, you're gonna be way ahead of everybody else because no one else is throwing F or G's in their first guess.
Yeah. It's
So
true.
when it does have that letter,
Sure, you're gonna land it.
you're gonna win that day.
My call me a pastor, but my first word for years was risen. I used risen because I felt like that was a good word.
It
We
is.
were having a men's Bible study, and I was talking with one of the men's about Wordle who always did it, and I was like, "Yeah, my starting word is risen." He said, "Have you done it today?" I said, "No." He said, "You should start with that word today." The word was risen.
Wow.
It's crazy.
It's eventually gonna be that word, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be frogs at some point if it hasn't been already. Might as well keep trying.
Yeah.
Might as well keep trying. So Noah, you think through theology a lot too, and you think through Bible stuff, and you often ask questions.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
All right, the first question I think I've answered already, but I wanted to bring it up.
We're here.
In preparation for this, I was writing out some questions. I started a notes thing in my notes app, and I said questions for Pastor Mark. My first one, I started writing it. I was like halfway through, and I was like, why am I asking this? I got
know
this.
this answer.
All right, so here's my question.
Enlighten us.
It's something I've actually struggled with for years, and I think I got it.
Oh.
So basically, it was if salvation is given to all of us freely, then why do you have to find out about Jesus? And for me, it was like I thought of it as if I baked a bunch of cookies and I said, these cookies are for everyone. And then I told like 20 people. I'd be like, wow, well, these aren't actually for everyone because only 20 people heard about these cookies. Well, then I thought about it like this. If I bake these cookies, okay, and a bunch of strangers came into my house for the cookies, I'd be like, there's strangers in my house.
Right.
They don't know me.
Yeah.
Which is how it would be like we didn't know Jesus. We'd be a stranger that hadn't come to have a relationship with him. So why would he want us in his house when we could be some sort of terrible, crazy person?
Barging
This is
through
what
his front
I
door.
had never put that together. Is it's like I wouldn't want someone in my house that could be a freak that could kill me. That's like a crazy person.
Sure.
Meaning that I don't know them. They're a stranger. There's no relationship there. So the cookies are for everyone that basically wants to know me, that wants to be my friend, that I want to come into my house.
And you're Jesus in this scenario, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just
Which in
clarifying.
most scenarios I put myself up pretty high.
Jesus.
Yeah. No, that's actually a really interesting thought that you could use that same analogy that you had to kind of disprove or to question something and flip it on its head and be like, oh, I'm continuing this analogy to make it make sense.
Yeah, I hadn't made the analogy that far before because I always stopped because it's almost like sometimes it's fun to have a question. You can be like, man, this doesn't make sense. I bet nobody could answer my great question.
Yeah, right.
And then it's like, man, if I just thought about this a little longer,
10 more seconds.
like Jesus wants us to have a relationship with him.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. Like,
yeah.
like I lock my doors at night. Like I don't want some random person coming to my house.
Yeah.
Which is how it would be if you were like, you know, why doesn't God allow crazy murderers that don't want any relationship with him in heaven? Because they said no, they don't want him anymore.
Yeah.
It's just like when God hardened Pharaoh's heart because he just said no too many times. Like at some point you gotta reciprocate and want God. Like
Well,
I think that's a great point.
In some respect, you're saying, I mean, even if Jesus wants everybody to have the cookies, like he has the cookies there, and he's saying, come get the cookies.
Yeah.
And then someone's going to the neighbor's house and saying, like, why didn't I get a cookie? Well, because you didn't go get a cookie.
Yeah.
Like, go get the cookie.
Yeah, you gotta come
Go
over.
over to
Yeah.
Jesus' house and get the cookie.
Yeah.
So it's less that Jesus is saying, no, you can't have a cookie.
Yeah.
And more that they're at the wrong house.
Well, I also heard, I had a pastor in the Navy give this analogy that I really liked. Maybe I brought it up, but people often will be frustrated by saying like, oh, well, why does God send people to hell? And the pastor told me, well, actually, if you think of it, God is answering their request, because if on earth they're saying, I don't want a relationship with God, I don't want to chase after God, I don't want to be with God, I don't want God to be a part of my life, God is answering their request by not having them in heaven for eternity. So he's saying, okay, that's what you want. Here's separation from me for forever. because that's what you wanted,
Yeah.
which is sad, but it's like that actually kind of helped me understand it and process it and make sense of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which is essentially the cookie example. It's just another way of saying
Yeah,
it.
can you put that in the word in terms of cookies?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. We're
gonna stick
really
with the
help me
cookies
grasp
there.
it. huh?
Or
Onion
Cheetos.
cookies.
Yeah, or cookies, Cheetos, ice cream,
Yeah.
pizza. Guys, I'm on a
a
really
theme.
strict eating regimen here. You're not helping.
That's right. Oh, that's well, I'm glad you were able to answer that question. That's
Yeah,
great. I'm
that's
processed
actually
it.
was
That's
a really good
fantastic.
feeling.
Thanks for enlightening us. Appreciate it.
Another question I had for you that I haven't quite completely answered. Well, I have like some theories on it, but
Oh,
I
I'm
don't know.
excited.
Is so I watched. My wife and I started watching The Chosen or whatever,
Yeah.
and in the first few episodes they show like demon possession, and I'm wondering what you think demons look like today. Like, do people still get possessed by demons, or are demons something different? Does the devil use demons to try and sway us different ways, or what does that look like in today? That's what I'm.
Let's think in terms of cookies. Just kidding.
Very, very mean cookies.
So kind of where's your mind at? If someone asked you that question, what would you say?
I personally think that it could be someone is an alcoholic, or someone is struggling with overeating, or someone is struggling with pornography or something. I think that those could all be demons in today's society, as opposed to like everyone's getting demon possessed and their like eyes are going crazy and they are talking in tongues or something like.
Yeah.
I think that maybe the devil has changed his game, and I think in a lot of ways when you look at society, it seems to be working. Where I'm not seeing a lot of demons as far as I can tell, but it seems like sin is at an all-time high. The stock is pretty high as far as I can tell. So I think maybe that he's changed his ways, changed his ball game a little bit. And if his goal is to just take people away from Jesus, which I believe that the devil is still active and trying to, I think it's probably easier than ever right now. But yeah, I think maybe it's like someone's got a problem with booze, and he could just have a little thought in someone's head like, man, it's been a really rough day. I deserve this. I've been struggling. Like, could that be a demon? I don't know, but that's just what I've been thinking. Or maybe there still are possessions of people. I don't know.
Dude, I think you nailed it. I mean, so yeah, there are still demon possessions, not as much in the United States because of our culture, right? Like you said, the devil is smart, right? So he knows what's going to work in a specific culture to draw people away from God's goodness. And so, like in a third world country, if you have someone who's demon possessed, they're often esteemed as gods, right? Because they have this demonic ability. And if that happened in the United States, if someone had this demonic ability, they'd most likely be put in a psych ward or something like that. Like, they don't have that power that they
Or
would
that
have in a
might even
different
bring
culture.
people to Jesus.
Yeah,
because
totally.
if there was a real, no jokes, no AI demon possession, and someone recorded it, and it got posted online, I would not doubt there would be tons of people pointing to Jesus, saying like, Satan is real, Jesus is real, turn to God.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to what you're saying is he's smart enough to know that in like America, that's likely what might happen.
Yeah.
So that's why it doesn't happen as often.
Totally. But in our culture, what's so much more effective is that whispering in the ear saying, hey, you suck.
Yeah.
Hey, you're not good enough.
The biggest trick the
doesn't love you.
devil ever pulled was trying to convince you he doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So you think it's your voice in your head.
Totally.
But maybe it's not.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's that those lies that fill our brain they're evil and they're lies and they're not true, but it is the most effective way to draw people away from God's goodness. Like, if you can experience God's good gifts, that's wonderful. But so often we take God's good gifts and we misuse them for other things and addictions, right? Like we were talking about sex. Sex is a good gift from God. But the devil has taken this good gift and convinced us that it can be better if we use it our way, right?
Yeah.
And that draws us away from God's goodness. That's all evil. Like, that is evil. It's not someone flopping around on the ground or their eyes rolling back in their head or vomiting across the room or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it is equally evil.
Isn't it crazy how those different sins, if you convince yourself, that it's okay, or where that devil convinces you to go back to nicotine again, or smoking or drinking or whatever the sin might be, that it actually ends up stealing something from you that you didn't think about, where you're like, man, this nicotine is having an adverse effect on my health. It convinced me to do it, but this devil is taking something away from me.
Yeah.
Or with pornography, it steals your energy. It's all of these sins.
Yeah.
And
it
it's
steals your freedom,
yeah,
too.
And it always fills you with guilt, and you feel crummy afterward. So it's like, man, how do they keep getting away with that, where people don't learn? I think it's because our memories fade. It's the same thing with pain. Like, someone who used to be a heavy smoker forgets just how bad it affected their life or their marriage or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah. And a lot of times, I mean, evil is done to us that perpetuates more evil. Like, it's like sexual trauma or something. Like, if you experience sexual trauma, you're much more inclined to participate in promiscuity and things like that. Like, oftentimes the result of evil is evil when Christ isn't introduced.
And that's crazy, just how introducing Christ can turn that evil into good.
Wild,
where
right?
someone can use that experience and completely change other people's lives from what happened to them. That is really, really interesting, because there's not a lot of other avenues away where evil doesn't become more evil without Christ. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
How you throw that in the middle, and it can change the outcome for tons of generations of people.
Well, and speaking of like be easily forgetting things, how quickly even especially Christians forget that the end of the story in the Bible is God wins. And we all, myself included, oftentimes we're just like, oh no, like we're worried about this thing, or we have a setback and we're like, how are we going to recover? How are we going to overcome? It's like, or we see like evil in the world and we're like, oh no, like this is terrible stuff, which it is, but God wins. Like, we know the final score, but we often forget and think just like short term, and we're not like, hey, like what if we stopped and prayed about it? Because we also lose the fact that God is stronger than Satan.
Yeah.
Like, God is bigger than the boogeyman, right? Come
Bigger
on.
than Godzilla or Monster something.
No, my Henry has watched that a few times, and he's like, how big is the boogeyman?
Smaller than God.
Yeah, it's way smaller than
How
God.
much smaller?
Yeah. He does that for length of time, like anything. Like,
totally.
you got to finish your meal. How long is it going to be? Is it going to be this big? Is it going to be this big or this big? Or how long is this nap? Is it this big? Is it this big? Is it that big?
Exactly.
How long is it going to take? How big is the boogeyman? Yeah.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, and that's again, I keep going back to Ecclesiastes, but that's what the book is about. The book is about, you could have 80 years of misery and just constantly bad thing after bad thing after bad thing, but that's only 80 years out of God's plan. Like God is going to win, not necessarily in your lifetime, but you get to play a part in a much longer game than just 80, 90 years.
Right. Yeah. And how much more would we endure suffering if we knew it was part of God's plan for good?
Ooh, it changes how you view life.
Yeah.
That life isn't, it has to end good on my time on earth, but it's a participation in something far bigger than my time on earth.
Yeah. We get so like focused on just here and now and our little group and our individual day that we don't think that what is happening to us might be crucial to how God wants things to go, which is pretty wild.
Yeah. Vanity, vanity.
I was thinking yesterday about how rich I am.
Nice.
In the aspect of
Gas
like,
pays well.
on the aspect of like, no, not like that.
I know.
Like we've talked before about that thing of like, okay, I could give you $1 million, but if you die tomorrow, do you still, you know, what would you rather have? Oh, so your life is worth more than $1 million.
Right.
But I thought of it even more so, like, if you could get $1 million tomorrow, but your entire family's gone, you wouldn't want it because your dad's gone, mom's gone, our friends are gone, you guys are gone. Then I don't want it.
Right.
Which means what we have right now is worth more than $1 million, not just your individual life, but our friendships are worth more than $1 million.
Yeah.
because and that's just so cool. We are that rich, and there's other people who don't have family like you and I do, Peter. Like they don't have it. So a lot of them would be like, yeah, I lose my family, but I get $1 million. Give me the $1 million.
Right.
We were born with $1 million because we were born into our family. Like, and how often we take that for granted.
I would need at least $2 million for that. No, you're absolutely right. It is incredible.
And I take that for granted all the time. We're like, oh man, things are tough, but I've got a lottery ticket right in front of me.
Seriously, like, so many people you don't realize until someone mentions it to you of like, hey, your family is different. Like, I don't talk to my siblings. And I'm just like, what? You're not like best friends with your siblings? And they're like, no, like we actually don't talk to each other at all. Or I haven't seen my mom in 10 years. And I'm just like, what? I pop in on my parents' house 3 times a week and they don't even know I'm coming over. Like, and it's like then
so different.
When people like talk to you and you're like, hey, like you got something really special. You're like, oh yeah, you're right. We do have the lottery ticket.
Yeah.
As far as like family and friends and loved ones, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely incredible.
One other question I want to get to quick because one of my friends wanted me to ask you because I have this opportunity with a pastor here.
You can text me at any point.
His phone's going to explode tomorrow, and he's flying to Miami, and he's never coming back.
Yeah. So in the Old Testament, there's a lot of times where it says God is talking to someone, like Moses with the burning bush. And other times it talks about God talking to people. What do you think that looked like? Was it like a voice from the heavens, as I kind of like picture it? Or what do you think that might have looked like back then?
Yeah, so I mean, it totally looked way different throughout the course of history, right? So when we start with Adam and Eve, it says that God was like walking in the garden with them in some sense. And so there was this close personal relationship where they probably did audibly hear the voice of God. And then, I mean, Cain and Abel, we even hear like conversations that are happening there. And then it becomes a little bit less frequent, and you kind of see these supernatural moments like the burning bush or things like that where God is speaking through these supernatural moments. And then as God's people are set apart and the tabernacle is set up and everything, then we see that God really stops talking to just everyday people and focuses his conversations with like prophets and priests and things like that. And those become the intercessors for who God talks to and everything like. And then Hebrews talks about how that in the Old Testament, God would speak to him through prophets and priests, but now God speaks to us through his son, and Jesus becomes the intercessor. And so I think that we marvel so much at how people in the Old Testament got to interact and have conversations with God, and we marvel like, how much easier would it be if God would just tell me what to do? And I think those same people would marvel at the privilege that we have of being able to look at the life of Christ, of having these scriptures and the sacred wisdom that we have to look at and to experience, to have the Holy Spirit in our hearts that guide us. Like how at any point any of us have that Holy Spirit in us that guides us. And so what it looked like specifically, I think early on it was much more tangible. Whether it was an internal voice, whether it was just a guiding of thoughts, or whether it was an audible voice, I'm not quite sure. We don't really know exactly what that looked like. But I know that it's changed over time, and I know that what we have now, I think, is the most profound interaction we have God that anyone has ever experienced.
Wow. That's a really cool way of looking at it. One other thing I wanted to say is like, I don't remember when it was exactly, but you had a sermon that really helped me where it was about that blank page between the Old and the New Testament.
Oh, it's my favorite. I love that page.
Oh, my goodness.
So cool.
That was incredible. I don't know if you remember this, but it was awesome. It was about how we don't think about how long of that time period was between the Old Testament and the New Testament, and how we're kind of in a new blank page now after Revelation, before Judgment Day, but how we can feel assured because the New Testament came after that blank page.
Yeah.
Christ was born
as
Jesus to Mary, so we can be assured that he's coming back again because it's already been a blank page once.
Yeah. That's really good.
It really just
cool.
blew my mind. Yeah.
Preach.
That's a really.
Oh
that's really
man,
cool.
it was so cool. Yeah.
Nailed it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Any other thoughts?
Noah.
Not really. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. thanks
Fun
for being a
talking to you
part of it.
guys.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Do you want to play a game? Do we want to do a game or not?
All right, we'll do a game.
You want to do a game?
All right.
It was just a cute game that I saw.
You saw a cute game.
Oh man.
Oh, if it's
I'm
cute.
curious because you guys like have grown up in the church, how you guys would do at it.
Oh, okay. Let's go.
And so it's legitimately quotes,
Okay.
and you have to tell me if they're from the Psalms or if it was Justin Bieber.
Oh no.
All right, I'm ready. All right,
All right.
wait. So how are we doing this? All right.
So I'll read the quote, and then
Okay.
you guys just got to tell me if you think it was a Psalm or a Bieber.
All right.
All right, you ready? So
Ready.
the first one is, these troublemakers all around. So just a second. Just to make it a little bit more difficult.
Is this NIV?
No, it's the message to make it a little bit more difficult.
Oh.
So it's going to be the
All
message.
right. Well, I only know I only speak NIV.
Speak NIV.
Yeah.
These troublemakers all around me, let them drown in their own verbal poison. Is that a Justin Bieber line or a psalm?
That's got to be a psalm. That can't rhyme.
It
with anything.
sounds like a psalm, which makes me think it's Bieber because they're trying to trick us.
I'm going psalm because I don't think he can rhyme verbal poison with anything. Is that what it was?
Verbal poison.
Yeah. No, that's hard to rhyme. So I'm going to go with psalm.
I'll say psalm.
It is a psalm. Psalm 149 through 11. Next. Who can make my life complete? It's all about you.
Bieber.
Yeah, that sounds like a Biebs.
That is a Biebs. See, you guys know your Bible.
Unbelievable.
But please don't spite me. Please don't spite me. Is that a psalm?
That's a
Or is
tough
this
one.
I'm leaning
Bieber?
psalm. I'm leaning psalm because I don't think he would say spite because it's a little bit too advanced verbiage for his audience, which is 12-year-olds.
I'm gonna say psalm.
It's Bieber.
No
It was
way!
Bieber. Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
disappointment.
Don't hold out on me. Don't hold back your passion.
In the message, that might be a psalm, but that's 50-50. That's a tough one. What do you think, Noah? I'll pick the opposite.
All right, I'll say psalm.
All right, I'll go Biebs.
It's Psalm 40:11. All right. Look at me and help me. I'm all alone and in big trouble.
Psalm.
Biebs.
Psalm 25:16.
Yes.
You're the right now and what will be.
These are
These
tough.
are hard, right?
Bieber.
Psalm.
Bieber. All of your boundaries keep me in line.
Psalm.
So it gotta be a psalm.
Bieber.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
All right, let's get down here. Day and night, I'll stick with God. I've got a good thing going, and I'm not letting go.
I'm gonna get on a limb and say it's a trick one and go Biebs.
Bieber.
Psalm 16.
Oh,
wasn't
weird.
tricking you.
They're in our heads.
Yeah. We're losing it. Let's do one more.
One more. I need you and nobody else. I'm sorry if I pushed you away.
Bieb.
Psalm.
It's a Bieber.
It's a Bieber.
It's a Bieber.
Tough game.
That was a tough game.
You guys did good, though.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. Good work.
We started out good.
Yeah.
You started out good. I was confident.
I think
And
we
then
finished out like 60.
It gets to a point where
60%.
it's like this could be
Yeah.
this could be a grumpy
They
David,
cheat you a little
or it
bit
could
with the
be-
message because they could twist words to make them
Bieber
sound
should just take passages from the message and make songs out of them.
easy.
That would
Done.
be fantastic.
Done.
That'd be
You just
awesome.
gave him his new album.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
Just titled Psalms.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, Noah.
Yeah,
It was
thanks
fun
for having
chatting
me.
with you.
Absolutely. That was fun.
I love it. Thanks for listening, guys, to A Work in Progress with Mark and Pete. We're back with guests.
Tell your friends.
Do it. Tell all your friends. We'll see you next time, real soon.
Bye.
Bye.
1, 2,